17 not admitted without parents or guardian.
You wanted to know who and what I am? I'm a killer. Me. I kill with my me and my rhythm box, me and my rhythm box. Should be happy. Paul gave us some money. We can go out to lunch. So get ready to go. It takes this bitch 2 hours to get ready to go out somewhere.
Good evening, fans of fantastic films. How long did it take you to put on your face today? I know it took me at least 2 hours, and I don't know. We won't ask Gigi.
2 hours is the bare minimum. 2 hours would be a low maintenance day, just chapstick and mascara.
So, Sam Panico is actually sitting this one out this week. But he will be on the show in the form of a video segment that we'll surprise you with later.
Yes, we will be beaming him in from his top super secret location just for you guys.
I'm very excited to have Gigi Graham on the show again, and she's my co-host. Thank you, Gigi.
Thank you for having me back. As always, I am your midnight movie monster, and in this case, your substitute teacher, and aliens. That is tonight's theme. So beam me up, spaceman.
Well, the last time Sam wasn't on the show, things turned to cannibalism.
Well, I mean, hopefully no one gets eaten alive today. I trust you guys.
So we've got two fantastic outer space freakouts on the show tonight. And I'm very excited to be watching both of these. God, how did we come up with this? I think you chose Prey, didn't you?
Correct. Yeah. You had already had Liquid Sky picked out and wanting to keep the alien theme and give everyone a little bit of the, 70s oddball kind of movie that we're known for on this show. I decided to go with Norman J. Warren's Prey.
I couldn't love you more for it. This is one of my favorite films of any, and it's an amazing furniture film too. Not only is it an exciting alien drama, whereas
well, there's actually a little bit of trivia to the whole furniture movie aspects of Prey, but we'll get there when we get there. For now, we're at Liquid Sky.
So Liquid Sky is it's one of those movies that just blew my mind from the very first time I saw it. But I admit it took me by surprise because I didn't expect it to be what it ultimately turns out to be. And those are always the happiest surprises sometimes.
Well, I think the big reason that I love this film is because they were trying to capture lightning in a bottle as it was happening. It's really easy to, create something that's reminiscent of a look or a trend in retrospect.
Yeah.
And in this case, for Liquid Sky, they had to kind of conceptualize everything that was going on around them as it was going on, which is incredibly tricky to do. And not only did they manage it, it's an extremely forward-thinking film. Once we've all watched it and we come back around on the second segment, we can kind of talk about how the influence of this film spread very far outward. This is also a really good example of how easily films get lost. The contemporaneous reviews for Liquid Sky were very positive. It ran for years at the Waverly Theater. It broke house records. The Waverly is now the IFC Center here in New York City. And right before the Vinegar Syndrome disc came out, the director was showing his 35 millimeter print, which was degrading pretty rapidly. This was a hugely influential money-making indie film, and it was still this close to being lost or damaged forever.
It's unthinkable to think that we couldn't. And Vinegar Syndrome did such an amazing restoration.
Yeah, it's never looked better. It probably didn't look that good opening day.
I did not see it theatrically. I saw it on VHS, like in the mid '80s at some point. But sadly, I can remember there was a night when some friends of mine were we had a repertory theater that we got to attend for free in college because it was associated with my college. And there were a bunch of people going, we're going to go see Liquid Sky at the Playhouse tonight. And I was like, nah, I'm just not feeling it. What was I thinking?
You weren't. Also, weren't you a bit of a new romantic back then? So, were you kind of salty at the new kids coming to usurp your trend?
Oh, those Liquid Sky people.
Those no waivers and those new waivers, like colors and shit. How dare they?
I knew even less. I know nothing about nothing now, and I knew even less then. So it was probably the way I thought of myself, though, was a new romantic. I don't know. I did kind of look. I wasn't quite goth.
Yeah, you weren't quite goth from the photos I've seen. That was where where my head put it. And I mean, obviously, the only thing I'm an expert of is my own taste and probably fashion. So I would say new romantic at that point.
I kind of started out looking like a sort of a new waiver, but then at some point I became Robert Smith looking. So is that goth? I mean, does that count?
Yeah, that's like soft. Yeah.
He doesn't want to be called goth, and neither does Susie, but they're both goth icons.
I mean, you don't get to choose.
No.
Sometimes these things happen around you, whether you like them or not.
So what about you? When was the first time you experienced Liquid
I
Sky?
probably didn't see this until like the late 90s. Because someone pointed out to me, like I was wearing something really like out there to a party. And they're like, oh, who are you supposed to be? Are you the girl from Liquid Sky? And I'm like, I've never even seen that movie. And the style in this film and the aesthetics just absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah.
Everything looks good. Everything is very cohesive. It's an immersive world. And there aren't a lot of sets and there aren't a lot of locations, but it feels like there's this whole universe on the outside of the frame. Do we have anyone who hasn't seen it in the chat?
Yeah, let us know. We'd love it. We'd love to get your first impressions anyway. Yeah, this was sort of like, I don't know. To me, Liquid Sky, first of all, it was everything I always thought New York was growing up in Pittsburgh. So what did I know about New York? But
I mean, this is closer than a lot of the other films from the same approximate period. There's another little bit that I wanted to talk about in that regard that I also have to wait until we get to the second segment because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. Oh, looks like Jenny hasn't seen it. Jeff hasn't seen it. Dan hasn't seen it. There's a lot of first timers in the house tonight. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, that's exciting.
What plot there is. Keep in mind that this is all no wave, new wave vibes. It's not really a super narrative driven film. Aliens come down from outer space. They're looking for heroin. Earth is their party planet, and they are looking to get high. They park themselves above the building of a drug-addicted fashion model. And of course, this being both the fashion world and the early 80s, everybody's got habits. So they've got everything they could ever wish for and more. Until the aliens discover that the dopamine from human beings having orgasms is even better than heroin. And then things kind of go sideways from there.
Stuff happens. The makeup hits the fan.
The makeup and the crystals.
Oh, yeah. This is a crystal movie.
Yes.
This movie is all that and more and less. So I don't want anyone to be put off by this. Is not going to be a really, like Gigi said, the narrative is not very coherent. And Gigi already explained like what I wish I had known when I went into this the first time.
We have Anne Carlisle, who was a fashion model, mostly known for doing like new wave kind of fashion work. She's in a dual role, dual gender, dual role. She is both Margaret and Margaret's male nemesis, who is an equally loathsome and addicted fashion model. There is Paula Shepherd from Alice, Sweet Alice as Margaret's girlfriend, Adrian.
Yeah.
I think if there's anyone else in this film you guys might know.
Well, one of the leads is Otto von Werner, who was a German actor, but he was also an electronic musician. And contrary to my original belief, he actually did not do the soundtrack to Liquid Sky.
No, apparently the director went to this place where you could like feed your wishes into like early synths and early computers, and they kind of helped him like wang it out because he didn't know music theory. He knew what he wanted, but he didn't know how to get it. So you end up with this very unusual synth score where it sounds almost like circus music in hell.
Yeah, that's a I never really made that connection that it was like circus music. So I'm always like absorbed by the synths. I love any kind of synth score right off the bat.
I mean, didn't we all sit through Legacy of Satan, which tells you how I feel about a synth score, because that's just basically drone. This has definitely got more of a structure to it than that. But again, this movie is very much style over substance. I wouldn't go looking too deeply into any one aspect of it.
Yeah, it's not meant to be a really absorbing story. It's more about the visuals, and there is a lot of atmosphere in it, and it exists in this fantasy world. To me, it's like a fantasy world that when I was, in my late teens and early 20s, and I was actually going out to, well, they weren't as hip as the New York clubs that we see in this film, but there was sort of like this nightlife that you thought of with, these people, who cares what they do in their daily lives, if they even have a day job. We just see them every time you go out, you see them, and they look different and exciting. Yeah, exactly.
This is before like Michael Alec and his whole band of merry miscreants. But yeah, this was that downtown moment where like punk was kind of over. The AIDS epidemic and the kind of withdrawal of nightlife that created hadn't happened yet. This is right at that moment in between. And like I said, they were trying to capture a moment as it was happening. And Anne Carlisle, our lead actor, also did some script rewrites with the director and his wife. And she put a lot of herself in this film, including, her fashion choices, people she knew from the fashion world. She was always out on the New York scene at the time. Club 57, Mud Club. What else was cool right about then? Danceteria probably, but that was more like popular kids. But I can actually put the photo in the chat for you. It's her dancing at the Mud Club, like right around the time this came out. And she's the only person who looks like this. This look was not widely adopted yet. Like there's little bits of New Romantic. You can see people that look kind of punk dancing around her. And then you can spot her right away because she looks exactly the way she does in the film. Let me see if I can throw this image in the chat for you. This actually came from the book by the doorman. I believe his name is Richard Bach of the Mud Club at the time.
That's exciting because, having not lived through that, the only reference I have is stories that other people have told and the way it's been represented in films. And it would be interesting. It's interesting to know that people really hadn't started looking like this when they went out, when the movie.
I mean, there was some of it. The big person that I can think of that probably had this, like Amy Mann from Till Tuesday.
Yeah.
Was probably the closest thing. Like there were people, but if you go a couple years later into the 80s, the bright color and the feathered, almost like cockerel looking hair and the high contrast Mondrian makeup is a lot more pervasive than it is right here. Like this was still subculture. This was still counterculture at that point.
One thing I noticed when I was researching this film's ad campaign, I kept finding things that referred to this as a punk rock movie. And I don't get that because there's not really anything punk about it, is there?
Well, I think that was an easy misconception at that time because, like I said, people didn't really know what was coming next. And so they assumed that this was just an outgrowth of punk. In fact, I believe it was Roger Ebert, when they did it on At the Movies, referred to it as like the ultimate punk fashion show.
Yeah, a lot of people did. Not only him, everybody seemed to call it a punk movie with a punk aesthetic, but there's nothing punk rock about this movie.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing punk rock about this. I'm trying to get this up there. I'm having a little trouble. Give me just a second, guys.
Yeah, Steve brings up a great point that David Sylvain in Japan had a look that was similar to Liquid Sky, and there were a couple.
Well, that's why Anne Carlisle, most of her modeling was in Japan, because they had already kind of gotten a bit ahead of us, where there were people that had this kind of aesthetic, or at least the start of it, going on.
It hadn't reached America in quite the same way, I'm sure.
Yeah, it hadn't reached like the tipping point.
One thing about, you mentioned Paula Shepherd. This is one of the only 2 films that she ever did. Wasn't it only this?
What a pair of films.
I know. She's stunning in each film.
Okay, I had to, for some reason, post it on the links for this week's movies. So if you want to pull it so that we can put it up on the Summer Jam screen.
Okay.
Here.
All right. You talk while I find it. Paula Shepherd.
Paula Shepherd in this movie, she's actually really, really delightfully evil. I mean, this whole film is full of horrible people, and she is probably one of the worst. And it kind of makes me sad she never did anything else, because she's this tiny baby-faced little thing. Like, she's not physically imposing at all. But in this film, you absolutely believe her as this bitchy, self-interested, completely, kind of amoral character.
She's menacing.
Yeah, which is surprising, and especially in contrast to Anne Carlisle, who's very tall, very lanky, very model-like. This little tiny thing that looks like, a fly buzzing around a giraffe is still like kind of terrifying.
Where did you say you posted that picture?
Underneath on the post for this week's links for the movies, I popped it as a comment under there.
Which platform?
On the actual Groovy Doom page.
Oh, because I can't find it. I'm looking on that. Okay, I'll refresh. Maybe it's not there yet.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's not letting me add an image to one of the comments on the video. Because why are things that simple?
You can email it to me at Groovy Doom.
All right, we'll do that. So this way I can show you guys.
Grab it from there. But Paula Shepherd in this film, she's menacing, and she's also an artist. She's a performance artist. And the closest reference point that I have to what she does is Karen Finley.
Depending on the age of everyone in the chat, if you were out and about in the early 2000s, what she did is basically electroclash. Think like Teaches of Peaches and that whole kind of movement, which kind of shows how far-reaching this movie was. That it was still, kicking around and being influential. Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs took like visual cues from this movie. The electroclash scene in Brooklyn in the early 2000s absolutely did. Particularly Adrian's performance there.
Yeah, she's kind of standing on this wall of monitors, and which I can't even imagine the nightmare it would be to mic something like that. She's literally standing on these on this tower of monitors, and she has a little thing playing next to her. Well, you'll see it in the movie. But she's this tiny little woman, and she's on these giant speakers. It's just one of the many whimsical moments you'll see in tonight's Liquid Sky. It's really kind of perverse, the things that this movie does. And I'm warning everybody right now, there's a lot of really sort of
just as a content warning, there are some sexual assaults. There's obviously drug use. There are some rougher things here. So if you're sensitive to any of that, or that triggers you, or puts you in a bad place, you might want to fast forward through sections of this, or only watch the beginning of it, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
It's not cutesy at all. Like there's nothing cutesy or heartwarming about this film. It's really very bleak. And
however, it does definitely feel like it is a coal black comedy in spots.
It's tongue in cheek. Like to me, it seems tongue in cheek.
Yeah, but I mean, nonetheless, there are still some very dark aspects here.
Yeah, it's played straight. Like everything about it is played totally straight. Even like the sexual assaults and the drug use and everything, and this like addiction that these people suffer from. So be warned. But we hope you'll actually stick around and watch it with us, so we can get your reactions afterwards.
Do we want to do a little bit of like how this film came to be, or do we want to wait until everybody's seen it?
You can talk a little bit about it. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do like a little baby. The fact that this film looks the way it does is actually really amazing. It was made for a very small budget. There are very few locations, a nightclub, an apartment, some street scenes. But the filmmaker who made it, Slava Superman, he was an immigrant first from what was then the USSR to Israel, then to New York. And because of the time and places in which he was making films, he was very used to doing things on a very, very small budget. And, oh, there we go. There she is. And you can certainly spot her.
Oops, what did I do? Okay, wait, here it comes. There we go.
If you look at everyone around her, like the woman directly next to her kind of looks like she might have just come like Casual Friday. There's somebody that's a bit more fancy behind her, but there's only one person that's full on new wave, shaved sides, checkerboards, graphic prints. That is our leading lady.
Her performance is pretty amazing in this film, I have to say. I kind of think so. Oh, I don't want that. There we go. Now she's larger.
Now she's larger, so you can see her clearly. I do think it's very impressive that there are scenes where both of her characters are in the same shot, which apparently the cinematographer had met the husband of Maya Deren, the famous experimental filmmaker. And he gave the cinematographer on this film the camera used to shoot meshes in the afternoon, which they pulled apart and reconfigured. And then to get the split screen of Anne Carlisle's two characters together, they used an old technique from the 1910s where they actually had to like reverse and work on the negative. So it is impressive that they managed to get them, so clean and so crisp and interacting with each other as often as they do.
Yeah, I think it's kind of amazing too. And you could tell it was something that they did probably pretty cheaply, but it's an amazing effect. So and her performance is, it's not like you can't tell it's her. It's not a homicidal moment,
No. But, I mean, it's definitely, you can tell it's the same performer, but they are distinct characters. They have distinct mannerisms. There's a certain physical similarity that you really can't get around unless you used a different actor.
So that's another interesting aspect of tonight's first feature. Also, it's a little bit of a long film. So we're warning everybody right now.
Yeah, this one is almost 2 hours. We usually choose things that are a little bit closer to the 90-minute mark, but this one is very lavish time-wise. It is almost 2 hours, but it's beautiful to look at. I don't think you'll regret it. I mean, just costumes and music alone. Who was it that said it was vibes earlier? It absolutely is that.
Yeah. Well put. Well, as you notice, Sam is not on the program tonight because he's got some stuff going on, him and Becca. But he left this message for us, and we hope that you're all eager for tonight's cocktail for the Liquid Sky. And here's Sam. Take it away.
Hey everybody, you're getting ready to enjoy the movie tonight. I'm joining you from the power of video to show you
how to make the drinks. The first drink is the Liquid Sky. It's super easy. In fact, I
even brought
some
of this for you guys. God knows I don't know how to pronounce it. Quintrial. Where we're at. You're gonna do an ounce of that.
And then
to give it the Liquid Sky, you're going to do an ounce of balls.
Or blue first.
And just do an ounce of that.
It helps
whenever you're putting this together, because you're going to be stirring this to have ice in there. And you put the spoon in before the ice. It's a little barkeep hand trick there for you.
So right now
we have the first two ingredients in there. We'll hold it up and see what it looks like.
And now we're going to put in 4 ounces of lemonade. I made this myself with just lemon water and sugar, but you can buy lemonade together. And finally, we're going to top that. See, it didn't blow up this time. We're going to top that with, yeah, it is. There we go. 2 ounces of club soda. And then when you get that all in the glass, all you got to do is give that a very nice and gentle stir. As such, believe it or not, these cocktail spoons, bar spoons, really help out a lot. There you go. Liquid Sky. Pazuzu.
Okay, tonight's production is just falling apart, but that's our cocktail of the evening. And cheers to Sam, who's not on the program tonight, but Pazuzu. To all of you.
Pazuzu, cheers, Sam. As usual, I cheated and I made a gin and tonic, but you guys already know, if you're regular viewers of the show, I'm an awful bartender.
Well, I cheated and made my own drink too, but anyway. Don't tell Sam. I didn't have any of that ingredient that he couldn't pronounce and I can't pronounce either. Cointreau?
I don't drink it, so I'm not sure on myself.
I wasn't even sure what it tasted like, so I wasn't feeling as bold. But anyhow, back to Liquid Sky, or have we talked enough about it before we go into it?
Do you have an ad gallery for this? Because, I mean, this ran quite a long time.
I do. I'm trying to find it as we speak.
Ah, very nice.
You would think I would just have it at the ready, right? It's this show. Oh, it's this place. Yeah, this sort of...
Whoever needs a handhold. Whoever's scared down there. Bernie, are you scared down there? Whoever needs a handhold, here you go.
All right. So Liquid Sky. It played a couple of film festivals in 1982, but it didn't actually get released until 1983, mid-April. You had to have your taxes done, and then afterwards you could go to see Liquid Sky when it opened in LA. There's Anne Carlisle and her male character in the ad. Curiously, they don't promote it with her flamboyant female persona.
If you do with the visual repeating like that, it makes it look more like Aliens, G-Men, something people would be more familiar with.
Yeah, I guess so. The quotes were the main thing on these ads. I think they wanted to make sure you knew that other people thought Liquid Sky was really awesome, so that maybe you'd go see it too. And one of the people, I know you can't read it, but one of the people is Cookie Muller right there in Details magazine. Startling and beautiful, a very strange, engrossing, hilarious, and well-structured script.
Well, she probably knew Anne, because in a lot of the photographs from the clubs of that period, she's also in those photo sets.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, from that same book that I just pulled the image of Anne, there's another really nice one of Cookie.
That's exciting. I wish she would have been in it. I think she passed away right around the time this movie came out. Didn't she die in 83?
I think so. I would have to double check.
Yeah. Bummer.
Andy Warhol was supposed to be in the original conception of this film.
How did they get away with not using him?
Well, what happened is this was originally supposed to be like a straight up science fiction film where like a mad scientist father gives his daughter a robot body so she can live on. And Andy Warhol agreed to appear in that. And for whatever reason, they lost funding. The project didn't end up happening. And the director and his wife combined two scripts they had going because she was also a script writer. Her name was Nina. She was writing about women who couldn't have an orgasm. You know, he was writing about this science fiction, like robot story. And then when they met Anne Carlisle, she kind of put herself and the world she lived in and, you know, the characters that she knew. And that's how we got Liquid Sky. So yeah, if this had originally gone as planned, it would be robots, not aliens. And at some point it would have involved Warhol.
Mike Justice brought before we stop talking about Warhol, I wanted to mention he did that often when he was supposed to be in movies. He often reneged because he was supposed to be in The Magic Garden of Stanley's Sweetheart. And
this one I'm not sure was his fault. I think their financing fell through.
Yeah. We'll blame it on Andy anyway.
Sure, why not?
You can't.
Nobody likes his wig. We'll just blame it on them.
And Mike Justice, yeah, this is another great quote that was in those ads that we just looked at. So thanks everyone for hanging out with us, by the way. It's nice to see all you folks. And we hope you're having a good Saturday evening, chilling out, watching Liquid Sky. What better way to spend your Saturday night?
Oh, thank you, Jody. Thank you for checking. 89.
Oh, wow. Good to know. Thank you for looking it up. So, oh, hi, Vince. I missed some thread of conversation about what Vince was referring to here. But anyway, that's the ad gallery. That's the drink. Anything else you want to say about Liquid Sky before we get into it?
You don't ever actually see the aliens. You see their saucer, and you see them only in what looks almost like heat vision. If you've seen The Predator, like a similar idea, like this animated, like almost heat vision looking thing, that's the only time you really see the aliens. Most of the time you spend with Margaret and everyone who surrounds her. It's a gorgeous, stylish film. It's made for smoking, made for drinking. So smoke and drink if you got them, and we hope you like it.
Yeah, this is definitely a substance film, if you're into that.
This is definitely a little bit faded of a film. Preferably cross-faded if you do.
It can actually be enjoyed without substances, though, too. So whatever your bag is, we hope you watch Liquid Sky and come back afterwards to talk more about it with us on the Drive-In Asylum double feature.